The sentence fell out of him faster than he could stop it, sharp and careless, like a coin dropped into deep water, and the silence that followed was heavier than the small cafe table between them. He had leaned back in his chair, arms folded, eyes drifting toward the window, as if what he had just said did not matter, as if it was a harmless preference spoken aloud. Across from him, her fingers tightened slightly around the warm ceramic cup. Not enough to tremble, not enough for him to notice, but enough to tell a whole story about restraint, about years of learning how to hold pain quietly. In that moment, something simple and cruel had been revealed. And if you have ever been judged by a single word attached to your past, you know how the air can suddenly feel thinner. How your chest tightens while your face stays calm. What would you have done if you were sitting there hearing your life reduced to a label you never chose? Her name was Hannah Mercer, and she had arrived early like she did everywhere because time had taught her that rushing only made grief louder. She wore a soft blue dress that reminded her of open skies, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she needed to feel steady. Across from her sat Lucas Warren, a project manager from a nearby city. Confident in the way people often are when life has not yet asked them to carry something heavy. They had exchanged polite facts at first, where they worked, which neighborhoods they lived in, the usual safe territory of first meetings. It had all felt manageable until the conversation drifted, as these conversations often do, toward the past, toward relationships, toward the invisible things people bring with them to a table like extra chairs no one sees. That was when he said it casually with a small shrug, explaining that he did not date widows, as if it were the same as disliking spicy food or avoiding long-distance relationships. Hannah did not interrupt him. She did not defend herself or explain, because grief had taught her that explanations rarely change hearts that are already closed. She had been a widow for 4 years, though she never introduced herself that way. She had been a wife once, deeply and sincerely, to a gentleman named Andrew, who had loved quiet mornings and fixing broken things around the house. Their life had not been dramatic or perfect, but it had been real. And when an unexpected illness took him in less than 6 months, it left behind a silence that never fully went away. Hannah had learned to live with that silence, to fold it neatly into her days, to smile without lying, to hope without demanding. Sitting there now, she felt that old ache stir. Not because Lucas rejected her, but because of how easily he dismissed something that had shaped her into who she was. Lucas, for his part, felt oddly justified. He told himself he was being honest, that honesty was better than pretending. He believed widows carried comparisons, shadows of past love that no new relationship could compete with. He did not consider that his words were not neutral facts, but judgments shaped by fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being second. Fear of a pain he had never actually touched. He glanced at Hannah, noticing her composed expression, and assumed she was unaffected. He did not know that strength often looks like stillness, or that some people have learned how to absorb hurt without spilling it onto the table. The turning point did not come in a dramatic burst. It came quietly, the way real lessons often do, slipping in through a side door when pride is not watching. As they sat there, a woman at the next table struggled to gather her things. A small child tugging at her sleeve, asking questions in a soft, insistent rhythm. The woman apologized to no one in particular, her eyes tired but kind, and Hannah instinctively stood to help, steadying the chair, offering a reassuring smile. Lucas watched as Hannah crouched slightly to the child's level, speaking gently, her face softening in a way it had not when she spoke to him. The child laughed. Tension dissolving, and for a brief moment, something in Lucas shifted, though he did not yet know what to call it. They sat back down, and the conversation limped forward. Awkward now, but alive. Hannah spoke about her work at a local community center, about organizing food drives and after-school programs, about finding purpose in service when life no longer followed the plan she once imagined. She did not mention her loss again. She did not need to. Lucas listened. Truly listened this time, noticing the quiet authority in her voice. The way she spoke of people not as problems to solve, but as lives to honor. He felt an unexpected discomfort, the kind that comes when your assumptions begin to crack. He had expected a widow to be fragile, to carry sadness like a visible weight. But Hannah carried something else entirely, a depth that did not ask for pity. Later that evening, after they parted politely, Lucas drove home through streets glowing with early evening light. His mind restless. He replayed the date the moment his words landed between them. The way her eyes had changed, not with anger, but with something sadder, something more dignified. He thought about his own life, about how easily it had moved forward, unmarked by loss, and how little that had prepared him for understanding others. That night, he received a call he did not expect. His father had collapsed at home and was in the hospital, stable but shaken. Lucas sat in a waiting room for hours, watching families move in and out, witnessing the fragile threads that hold people together. And for the first time, he felt a flicker of the fear he had always avoided. In the days that followed, Lucas found himself thinking of Hannah often. He thought about how she had shown kindness without being asked, how she had listened without trying to impress, how she had carried her past not as a barrier, but as a foundation. He realized that what he had rejected was not widowhood itself, but his own discomfort with grief. His unwillingness to face the truth that love, real love, always risks loss. Avoiding that risk did not make him safe. It only made him shallow. He began to understand that widows were not people stuck in the past, but people who had loved deeply enough to be changed by it. A week later, Lucas reached out, unsure of what he hoped for, only certain that silence would be the wrong choice. Hannah agreed to meet again, not because she needed validation, but because she believed in giving people space to grow. This time they walked through a public garden, the air cool and open, the kind of place where conversation feels less trapped. Lucas did not try to explain himself away. He spoke honestly about his fear, about the hospital waiting room, about realizing how little he understood. Hannah listened not as a judge, but as someone who knew that growth often begins with discomfort. Their connection did not transform into instant romance, and it did not need to. What changed was something quieter and more lasting. Lucas learned that compassion is not about agreeing with everyone, but about honoring experiences you have not lived. Hannah was reminded that her story did not need to shrink to make others comfortable. They both carried forward, changed in small but meaningful ways. Proof that even a single careless sentence can become the start of a deeper understanding when humility enters the room. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you reflect on a moment you judged too quickly or were judged yourself, you are welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story truly touched your heart, gently consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing so more stories of kindness and quiet growth can find their way to others.